On November 18th of 1995, a middle-aged black man was found unconscious in Atlanta, Georgia. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where it was determined that he was suffering from a cocaine overdose. The doctors did everything they could to save him, but their efforts simply weren't enough. The man never regained consciousness, and he died several weeks later on December 13th. Nobody knew who the man was. If he had any family, none of them had come to the hospital. He had been carrying a wallet at the time, but it was determined to belong to a different man. It is still unknown if John Doe simply found the wallet after the original owner lost it or if he stole it. Dental information and a fingerprint were taken, but due to the more limited technology at the time, investigators were unable to identify the man. Nobody ever came forward to claim his body, and the authorities eventually had to resign themselves to keeping his name, John Doe. However, in August of this year, 2023, John Doe was given back his name because of technological advancements that simply did not exist when he first passed away. Augustine Ihuoma has still never been claimed by family or friends, and despite now knowing his name, we still don't know where he was from or what his life was like. Some people have speculated that he may have been from Nigeria because his last name comes from the Igbo language, a native language of southern Nigeria. However, without any living relations to confirm or deny this, it is still unknown whether or not this theory is true. It's certainly a chilling thought that this man died alone with no family or friends. While we don't know for sure, it seems as if his life was most likely a very solitary one, and it ended with him overdosing on the street. If he does have any living relatives, hopefully they will come forward at some point to provide some more information on Augustine's life. On September 15th of 1994, a road crew was doing work a little north of Interstate 10 near the Holt exit in Florida. This crew made a chilling discovery. They found the skeletal remains of a woman. They reported their gruesome discovery, and an investigation soon began. The victim was a white female with brown hair that appeared to have been bleached. She was wearing a floral jacket with sequins on the shoulders and a floral dress with buttons up the front. She had numerous pieces of cheap jewelry, including 2 silver rings, a black cord bracelet, a silver band, a charm bracelet, and a cord necklace. Investigators believed the woman had been hitchhiking at the time of her death, and they therefore strongly suspected foul play. Their understanding of the case was that the woman had caught a ride from somewhere near Tampa Bay and was traveling to Reno, Nevada. The authorities developed a theory that Jane Doe had been a victim of the happy-faced killer, Keith Jesperson. In February of 1996, Jesperson confessed to having murdered Jane Doe, but he could not remember exactly what her name had been. He thought it may have been Suzanne, Susanna, or Sue, but he wasn't sure which. He stated that she had been carrying several intriguing items at the time of the murder, including tree bark and moss. He believed she may have been a fortune teller. Jesperson had come across Jane Doe while working as a cross-country truck driver. According to him, he had used zip ties to murder her in his truck, and then he dumped her body at the side of the interstate. He was already serving 7 life sentences when he was charged with the murder of Jane Doe. He was known as the happy-faced killer because he wrote several letters to the media in the 90s that he signed with smiley faces. Despite solving the identity of her killer, authorities were having trouble identifying the victim. It took almost 30 years for Jane Doe to be given her real name back, but due to new forensic technology and DNA testing in 2023, she was identified as Suzanne Gellenberg. Apologies for my poor pronunciation of her last name. She was the 6th known victim of the happy-faced killer. Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 23, 1996. A woman jumped off the top of a parking ramp and died when she hit the ground. A very gruesome way to end your own life. Investigators discovered that the woman had checked into the Regency Plaza Hotel under the name Susan Watkins shortly before her death. She had claimed that she was originally from Texas, but oddly enough, she had no identification or photographs on her person. As it turns out, the name Susan Watkins was actually an alias. In 2022, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office teamed up with Identifiers International to find Susan, or Jane Doe's, real identity. They were able to raise enough funds to exhume her remains and collect new evidence. In April of 2023, a senior forensic genetic genealogist named Misty Gillis posited a theory that Susan's real name was actually Sally Green. This theory was confirmed in September of this year. Sally had been born in Daytona Beach, Florida. She had lost touch with her family sometime during the 70s, and hardly any more information is known about her life. Much like the first case in this video, it's an uncomfortable thought that Sally lived such a solitary life and decided to end it herself. What makes it even worse is that it took so long to give her real name back. Hopefully Sally's case can serve as a reminder to always check in with your family members, especially when they're far away and no longer in contact with the rest of your family. In April of 1990, a hiker in Ormond Beach, Florida, was making their way along a trail between Clyde Morris Boulevard and Avenue D. This individual happened to cross a terrifying discovery: the skeletal remains of a woman. The hiker immediately contacted the authorities and they performed an investigation. They were able to find additional skeletal fragments scattered throughout the surrounding area. Disturbingly, no clothing or personal possessions were ever found, suggesting the woman's killer knew what they were doing. Because she had no identifying features and there was nothing in the area to point to an identity, she quickly became known as the Volusia County Jane Doe. In 2000, the authorities created a forensic facial reconstruction of Jane Doe, which was updated in 2015 with digital forensic technology, making the reconstruction more accurate. The investigation also continued throughout the years, but despite their efforts, investigators could find nothing about the woman herself or about how her life was taken. However, they were convinced she had been murdered. The lack of personal possessions or clothing made this the most likely theory. Between the time Jane Doe was first discovered and the biggest break in her case, 33 years came and went. For 33 years, Jane Doe remained a mystery without her real name. But finally, in 2023, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office collaborated with the District 7 Medical Examiner's Office and Othram to perform further DNA testing on the woman's remains. They successfully created a DNA extract and used a complicated method to create a profile of Jane Doe. They were able to find a woman in Missouri whose DNA was very similar to Jane Doe's. Investigators interviewed the woman and she revealed that she had not seen her sister since 1989, just 1 year before Jane Doe had been discovered. After this, detectives tracked down the people they suspected to be Jane Doe's children, and they reported they had not seen their mother since 1989. All of these people provided DNA samples, and they all matched. The Volusia County Jane Doe was actually a woman named Roberta Lynn Headley, or Bobby for short. She had graduated high school in the 70s and got married in 1979. In 1989, Bobby divorced her husband of 10 years, and she went missing shortly after. It doesn't take a genius to figure out who was responsible for her death. Despite this fairly recent break in the case, no information about Bobby's ex-husband is available online. I'm sure the authorities are at least looking for him if they haven't found him already. Hopefully, justice can be served.